Good evening, folks. I'm going to call this meeting to order, the Stayton City Council on Monday, July 18th, 2016. Would those of a like mind please join me for the flag salute? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And let's see.
City Council meeting.
We have everyone present except Councilor Usselman and Councilor Quigley. Everyone else is here. Staff is here. Our new librarian makes, I think, is this your first official appearance?
My first official appearance.
Which is
Did
great.
you make any unofficial appearances?
We had her here last meeting. They're treating you all right over there?
Yes.
Okay, that's important. Okay. Additions to the agenda. Declarations of ex-parte contact, conflicts of interest, bias. You turned that camera on? It is on?
I did.
Okay. Good. Presentations, comments from the public. Anything back there?
Red lights.
The employee recognition by Mr. Campbell. Did any of them show up tonight?
We do have a couple here.
We may not have any
Well,
more of
he's-
those.
Well, he's saying that. Does anybody know how to make these chairs higher?
No. The intent is, Priscilla, the intent is to hunch down over it. So if they throw stuff, you don't get hit.
Well, that's it. That's it, though, I think. That was as high as I was. It's a fun little ride. I gotta try that.
All right, Mayor and Council.
Oh,
Go ahead.
Mr. Campbell.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Tonight, we do want to recognize employees for years of service. Unfortunately, a few of them could not be here tonight. I understand that other obligations sometimes require that you can attend, but we do have certificates, and I do want to go ahead and recognize the people who can be here and who could not. So without further ado, we've asked them to do surveys to kind of give a little information and background about their time with the city. So we would be interested in going ahead and doing that. So I'll go ahead and get started. So celebrating his 10-year anniversary is Charlie Button. Face him may be familiar to some of you. He's a lieutenant in the police department. He was hired as a patrol officer in 2006, promoted to patrol sergeant in 2010, and promoted to lieutenant in 2015. He's a member of the Lions Club here locally. Prior to working for the city, he worked for the city of Almsville from 2001 to 2006. His education, he has an associate's degree in criminal justice. In 2006 and 2007, he was the police officer of the year for the city of Stayton. He says he's most proud about his son, Damon. He's 16 years old, known for driving around town in his Jeep, member of the Stayton High School football team, recently graduated from the Santiam Canyon Fire Academy as a member of the Stayton Fire District. And for his hobbies, he says his best moments are spent watching his son's football games, enjoying attending Oregon State football and basketball games, and he likes road trips to Idaho and eastern Washington where he can attend more football games. He wishes that he spends more time fishing in the Cascade Mountain lakes. So congratulations to Charlie for 10 years of service with the city. Dan Fleshman is celebrating 10 years with the city. Dan could be here tonight.
That's a stretch.
In his time here, he's served as the Planning and Development Director. And prior to this, he worked for the town planner in Arundel, Maine, and the interim planner for Wells, Maine, and 17 years at the Council of Governments in Southern Maine. He has his BS in Natural Resource Management from the University of Maine. It's the mascot for the University of Maine.
The Black Bears.
Black Bears.
If they had sports teams, you would know that.
When Dan is not at work, he enjoys gardening, bicycling, and hiking. Congratulations, Dan, on 10 years of service.
Congrats, Dan.
Also celebrating 10 years of service is Matt Leonard. Matt is a police officer with the Stayton Police Department. He has served as a firearm instructor from 2012 to 2015 and the range master and armor during that same time period. Before working with the city, he worked for the city service officer and a police officer. He worked with them from 2004 to 2006. He has his Associates of Applied Science and Criminal Justice from Chemeketa Community College and his Bachelor of Social Science and Criminal Justice from Western Oregon University. He has a wife, Christy, and his son, Logan, who's 2. And when Matt's not at work, he enjoys kayaking, mountain biking, snowboarding, welding, and fabrication. So congratulations to Matt Leonard on 10 years of service with the city. Celebrating 15 years of service is Alyssa Angela. She started in 2001 as a Public Works Secretary. In 2008, she became the Public Works Administrative Assistant, and in 2012, she became the Deputy City Recorder. She was a founding member of the Stayton Sprint Triathlon Committee, a member of the Oregon Association of Municipal Recorders, and a member of the International Institute of Municipal Recorders. She has not worked anywhere else. She graduated from the Western Oregon University with a degree in business administration, and she has her certified municipal clerk certification. Ask you about her family, and I'm just going to go ahead and read this exactly. John has been my significant other and husband for a, all caps and bold, really long time. Lindsay and Lillian are her 2 daughters, and they are awesome and amazing. In her spare time, she loves spending time with her family, outdoors, traveling to fun places. Love, 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 bold, all capitals, Disneyland. We try to travel there as a family as often as we can. I also enjoy exercising and teaching myself all I can about nutrition. So congratulations for 15 years, Alyssa. If there's a ghost in the city, it may be the last person who's celebrating 25 years, which is Bob Zeller, our chief operator and at the water treatment plant. That's what Bob provided. So Bob is likes to keep to himself and just produces great water for the city and takes great pride in his plant. If you ever get a chance to go take a tour, you'll see someone who truly loves what he's doing and loves what he produces. So I want to congratulate Bob Zeller on his 25 years. So thank you, Bob. And with that, that's our recognitions for this year. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Keith. With a comment on the chairs, they're made so you kind of scrunch down over it. I never watch these things on the tapes. I never have seen one. I know that would conflict with my thought of myself sitting up straight and tall, projecting a strong image, and the reality is hunched down trying to read this agenda and looking over the microphone, so I don't look at them, but maybe it's the chair's fault. Consent agenda, June 29th, 2016, City Council minutes. You folks have a copy of those, and what would you like to do with them?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
I would move that we approve the minutes as presented to us.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the minutes as presented. All in favor say aye, please.
Aye.
Okay, and no, that's 3, and no one else here to oppose, so motion passes. Let's see. Public hearings, none. Unfinished business. Second consideration of ordinance number 996 regarding crop production. Mr. Fleischman.
Good. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. At your last meeting, however long ago that was, something more than 2 weeks ago, you held a public hearing on proposed code amendments, and following the public hearing, approved the first consideration of the ordinance, but made some changes to the ordinance as it was originally presented to you. So therefore, it is back before you for a second consideration. At your last meeting, the ordinance that was presented to you would have allowed indoor crop production in 3 zones: the light industrial, the industrial commercial, and the commercial general The amendment was to remove the commercial general so that crop production will be permitted only in the three industrial zones. And in the light industrial and industrial commercial, that will be restricted to indoors only. So unless you have any questions or further discussion among yourself, I think ordinance 996 is ready for a second consideration. Patty, if there are any questions you...
Thank you, Dan. Certainly from the discussion last time, it was evident that not everyone in this community is wildly excited about increasing the distribution of cannabis sativa among our populace, even though it's a accomplished fact. The wild endorsement of it is still missing. So what would you folks like to do with this?
I have a question.
Yes, please.
After our last meeting, I guess I had a question and I didn't. So when we removed the commercial general zone, did we get rid of something that a business owner was wanting? Like, what's the place downtown called?
Homegrown.
Homegrown. So were they asking to be able to grow some in the back of their facility there, and now they can't because of that? What did that do to anything, I guess, what I want to know?
The owners of the dispensary that's on 3rd Avenue
Right.
have had a grow operation at a different location
Right.
in the city.
Right.
So, and that operation is on property that is currently zoned commercial general.
Is that the property out by A&W?
It is a
further
bit
out.
to the west of A&W. It is
That's-
behind Jim
Behind-
McGee's
yeah.
office.
Okay, that's commercial general?
That is zoned commercial.
That's all
general.
those little warehouse things out there?
Yeah, but, right, the property has 3 separate warehouse buildings in it.
Okay.
And that location does not meet the separation distances from nearby residences. So regardless of what you do with the zoning, there's still the business licensing code that requires 200 feet separation. And I think that was partially discussed at your last meeting, and the council at that time gave no indication of being interested in changing that.
And that wasn't up on that wasn't even on the
That wasn't on the floor,
table or
but-
anything, yeah,
But it was
okay.
sort of discussed, and
Okay.
and the motion that was made last time was to remove the commercial general.
Okay, so I guess maybe I can ask, if I can ask a question of a fellow counselor, correct?
Sure.
So Jennifer, when you put in to take out the commercial general zone, what are we taking out? What is your concern, I guess? What are we taking
Well,
out?
there were only, I think, 5 or 6 properties that would have allowed for those to be grown on those properties. And it wouldn't have addressed what the people that were here, what they wanted. So I don't know why there's much point to approving it for 5 or 6 properties that, I mean, one of the properties that it would have approved it for would have been the Roth's Mall.
Okay, so that's where, if we said that they could grow commercial general zone, they could have opened a grow operation in the Roth's Market Mall, is that what you're saying?
Right.
Yeah, okay.
I'm not
Okay.
opposed to looking at it, changing the 200 feet to 150
Okay.
feet, but I don't want to do that without
Right.
notifying everybody, having everybody have a chance to talk about it, and looking at a map to see where that's going to be.
Right,
I'm not comfortable with that.
okay, yeah.
Mis-
I just knew that there was a clearer way that I could understand that, and I do.
Mr. Mayor?
This could become an item again. Okay.
I do want to point out, but before the city came with the adoption of the standard footage, the 200 feet. We did, and Chief Stevens can speak to this because he's the one who did it, we did reach out to the owners of homegrown remedies and presented what we were proposing, and they accepted what we proposed. What we didn't know at the time was they were aware that they would then be in violation of our code, and at the advice of their attorney, they decided not to speak up. Well, once the code was passed, their operation became a location that you couldn't grow at, so that was one of the reasons he was in, I think, speaking of trying to shorten the distance. But from the city's point of view, 200 feet, in many ways, one of the big issues that many cities are facing right now is the odor, and that was talked about as well, because those grow operations do have a pretty significant, and some people think sort of offensive odor. But, you know, they had an opportunity to be part of that discussion, chose not to be upfront and honest with us, and so now are seen to be upset with the city because they want to change that because it doesn't meet. So I just wanted to explain, you know, that the city had done its due diligence and had offered them an opportunity to be part of that discussion, and they chose not to be forthcoming with us. Chief, is there anything I should change?
That's correct.
Right. And again, probably if they were acting on the advice of their attorney, I mean, you know, if you're a lay person, you don't know what you go with whatever people tell you. So it may not be that they were trying to be covert or do something. They were trying to do what people were telling them to do. Anyway, so currently they have the grow operation out there, and there's been no complaints currently, right? So I'm assuming that they know that they could come to the planning department or someone else and make that case if they wanted to, for us to look at the 200 feet thing, right?
I don't believe they have a grow operation at that location any longer.
Correct. They dismantled it.
Oh, okay, okay.
Because it didn't meet our code requirements.
Right, okay.
Correct.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, I'm good.
Other questions or thoughts on this one? Second consideration of ordinance 996 regarding crop production. And we have a motion. Do we have a motion on this?
I'll make a motion to approve the second consideration of ordinance 996.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second to approve the second consideration of ordinance 996. Is there any other discussion? Okay. Alyssa, would you poll the group, please?
Sure. Counselor Glidewell?
Eight.
Counselor Nagel?
Yes.
Counselor Lewis?
Aye.
Motion passes 3-0.
Okay. Okay, thank you. And new business, consideration of adoption of a property maintenance code. Mr. Fleischman.
Thank you. I was waiting for my technology to come on, which maybe it will do.
Or we
Oh,
could
here it
just,
comes.
we
Here it
could just
comes.
let the weeds grow.
Right. So the staff is here before you this evening to have a discussion about property maintenance issues in the city. We're looking for direction from the council on how or even if to proceed with the preparation of an ordinance. We've not drafted one, we've not placed one before you for a decision, but really want to just bring the issues to you and hear from the council as to how we should be proceeding. Two different sets of discussion, perhaps. One is residential rental property, and the other is non-residential property. For residential rental property, state law currently establishes minimum habitability standards. It requires a landlord to provide hot and cold running water, to make sure the electrical systems are working properly, that the structure is structurally sound, etc. But state law does not have an enforcement mechanism particularly available to local government for enforcing those provisions. It is up to the tenant and the landlord to deal with those issues if a unit does not meet the state standards. The code amendments that we've placed in your packet for discussion are based on standards that the city of Eugene and the city of Corvallis have adopted into their codes. It essentially references the habitability standards of state law, but provides a mechanism for local enforcement of those standards. And the standards that are, the draft standards that are in your packet are at times a bit more specific than the general standards state law. For instance, where state law says the landlord needs to provide heat, the draft standards say there needs to be a permanently installed heating unit, not an electric portable plug-in heater, and it needs to be able to maintain a temperature of 68 degrees 3 feet from the floor, as opposed to just there needs to be adequate heat, which is what the legislature has said, without saying what that means. The suggested code that we've placed in front of you for discussion does require that the tenants issue a written complaint to the landlord prior to any enforcement activity with the city. So the complaint that comes to the city must include a copy of that written notice to the landlord, and requires that, here the minimum standards that are discussed are structural integrity, plumbing, heating, electrical, weatherproofing, operating smoke and carbon monoxide alarms where required by code, security, having a door that locks and windows that latch so that people can't enter your unit from the outside, and maintaining the building and grounds in a reasonable condition. So again, proposed enforcement procedures are that a complaint must be from a party to the rental agreement. So it has to be from the tenant or the tenant's representative. It must include a copy of the written notice that was provided to the landlord. And before the code officer takes any action, the landlord has to be given 10 days to take corrective action, unless it's a matter of lack of water or sewage in a health situation. Then the proposed code talks about 48 hours notice to the landlord before the city takes any enforcement action. The city of Eugene and the cities of Corvallis, the other cities that I saw included Gresham, finance their rental housing program through an annual per unit fee. And from the information I could find online and from talking to other city staff, those per unit fees range from $10 to $55 per unit per year. Gresham charges $55 per unit for the first 2 units, and then it's a declining scale, and if you own more than 200 units, then it's down to like $20 per unit. Eugene, I think, was $10. Corvallis charges $13 per year. If Stayton were to establish a per unit fee of $10 based on the number of rental units in the city, it would raise somewhere between $15,000 and $18,000 depending on the compliance with payment. If everybody paid, it would be about $18,000 a year. And one thing that's in my written report that I didn't say, so members of the public here tonight may not realize, but according to the census, somewhere between 40 and 48% of the housing units in the city are renter occupied. The 2010 census, which is a more precise measurement because it's based on a larger sample size, It is close to 42% for the 2015 American Community Survey, which is a smaller sample size, and the average of 5 years' worth of data collection, their estimate is something like 48% of the housing units are rental, but they also say the margin of error there is something like 7%. So it could be 55%, it could be only 41%. So it's a substantial portion of the community is in rental housing. Here's an example. The city has been taking some enforcement action, and that's partly what has prompted us coming to the council, although this is an issue that's been talked about for years. This is a picture of a 15-unit rental property here in the city where we have taken enforcement action lately because it got to the point that the Marion County Building Inspection gave us a letter that it was actually a dangerous building. So this property has gone far beyond what the issues or concerns that are addressed by possible property maintenance code deals with. Here we've got balconies with improper supports. We've got fire alarm systems that are not functional. And we've got a window to a unit that the tenant has told us has been in this condition for over a year, through the entire winter. Non-residential property, I've done some research on what other communities have done, and most of them appear to have adopted by reference the International Property Maintenance Code. And it's very comprehensive, and I think it's probably more than what we need here, but it does address sanitation issues, sidewalk and driveway conditions, paint conditions, window conditions, and structural issues. And I think it sort of, for me, and the issues that I've seen here in Stayton, it's really a matter for the non-residential properties, for the few that I've got in mind, it's really a matter of keeping them in a condition of reasonable presentation. I think the primary example here in the downtown area is the old Dietrich building that's had a boarded up window for 7 or 8 years, paint peeling, different color paint, etc. And the owner has taken very little action in the time that I've been here to maintain the exterior appearance of the property, and it's one of the ones that we frequently get complaints about in City Hall as far as appearance. And so that I see for non-residential property, we're primarily dealing with the exterior appearance more than habitability or issues or structural issues. And again, we've got the dangerous building code provisions to deal with real structural issues. So that's a brief summary. You've got some suggested language in your packet that again, based on other cities' codes, and really the issues before the council are: do you want to establish standards that can be locally enforced for residential rental properties? If so, do you want to establish some type of fee system to help finance the administration and enforcement of those standards? And do you want to establish standards for non-residential property? And we placed before you possible language to dealing with the residential rental properties. As far as non-residential, if there's interest among the council in proceeding in that direction, we would come back to you again with ideas before we present you with a draft ordinance, so that you can have some input on the extent to which those standards would apply and how specific they are.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, please.
I'd
Go
like to
ahead.
ask Dan a question. So Dan, in looking at non-residential property, I don't know if you looked at Silverton, but the reason I'm asking that is I had read something and not very thoroughly, and so I thought maybe you would know better about some policies and some things that their city council did with property downtown in their old town area. And it said that they had gone beyond just allowing people to have empty buildings that the paint looked okay on, that it actually said that they needed, if they weren't going to rent it out, they needed to be working on it, or they needed to be in process of renting it. I mean, it was stronger, I guess, than what I'm saying that you said. And the reason I was reading that, it was talking about how they were answering a question of how they got inactive property owners to actually do something about their buildings downtown, and they said that that is what created that, is that either you couldn't just have an empty building, you either had to be working on it, you had to be actively looking for. I mean, it was a little, I guess, stronger than that language.
I'm not familiar with whatever policy Silverton has, but certainly we can look at them if council is interested in pursuing that type of direction. I do know that, from having lived outside of Silverton for a few years, that they've had their share of empty buildings, but I don't think, unlike some of ours that have been sitting empty and not available for rent for, in some cases, decades now, I don't think they've had that issue. I mean, they've had tenants come and go, businesses succeed and fail.
This happened like, I can't, but about 12 to 15 years ago, that they enacted something because they had a downtown that looked, a lot of the buildings were exactly like ours. Nothing happening for decades.
Right.
I thought, Priscilla, I thought it was even more draconian than that you either had to be fixing, renting, or you had to have the building for sale.
It's something like that, but it was something that went beyond just making a code.
Yeah.
It was actually something that actually did something. It actually made something happen, and I really liked that. The fact that it was a little more proactive than that. So. Just my own opinion, I am interested in us doing something like this, but I actually was in Eugene when they did that one, and there was a lot of controversy about it, and a lot of things happened that people didn't think were going to happen, such as people writing letters to landlords when they had been evicted, which stopped the eviction process. And so there were some unwanted things that occurred. However, overall, I think that overall it was a good thing, and I think in the end that it became more positive than negative overall. And I think with what we just saw occur here locally, it certainly indicates that we need to look at something. Not sure what.
Dan, this fee would almost presume, does for me anyway, an inspection process. We go look at every apartment in the city once a year. Now, that's a little much, I know.
I did in Corvallis and Eugene, I do not believe that's part of their program. I believe it was Gresham that I was looking at today online. It appears randomly selects a percentage of rental units in the city and does unannounced inspections.
I could go with that.
Mr. Mayor, I think in Eugene, they don't even do random inspections. Yeah, there has to be a complaint by the tenant before any action is taken.
From what I could tell in looking at Eugene and Corvallis's code, there is not an inspection process in the code. Now, whether they do something that's not complaint-driven, I don't know, but it's not incorporated into the municipal code.
The way you structured this, this written possibility, it's just complaint driven.
Yes.
But what if people are afraid to complain?
That's always a potential problem.
These pictures we were looking at, I mean, did we finally get complaints on that, or was that something somebody just discovered?
Those were complaints that the city got involved after Marion County Building Inspection was called and did an inspection. So again, because there really is no reason to call City Hall, because today we have no code, we have no enforcement authority, and again, in the case that's ongoing at the current time, it got to the point that the building inspector came and said, this is a dangerous building.
Okay.
Actually, Public Works was called several times regarding the one building, and we forwarded it to Marion County.
And the nature of those complaints?
You saw them. Windows broken out, balconies that were ready to fall,
Okay.
but we have no jurisdiction over that.
How did we as Public Works,
We weren't. We were called.
by the tenants?
Tenants, yeah. One tenant in particular, which spurred the call to Marion County.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, please.
The money that it would raise for the taxes doesn't seem like enough to actually hire anybody to do anything. It seems like enough to respond to a complaint that may be there, such as the responses that are happening right now that are coming probably out of the everybody's budgets that are responding. But I did want to say I actually know a little bit about the Eugene one because of the fact that I was involved in housing at the time. But some of the money that was done, that was collected, was marked specifically to do some outreach to tenants and rental properties about their rights and about how they could how to complain if they needed to. And so I think a little bit of that money was actually set aside specifically to let renters know what to do if they had concerns.
Almost an advocate, a rental advocate? The outreach would be coming from the city.
No, I ran a social service agency at that time, and we actually had materials that the city printed up to hand out to people that came in to, like, our food box room and other places that you would normally see people that are living in rentals, so that there were little folders that said, is your house safe, and stuff like that. So it didn't establish, I don't think, new positions. I think that they used current services for rental people to get that information out.
Okay. Anything else? Folks? Ralph?
I think this could be really good for the dire situations such as the one we've seen lately, but I'd be concerned about getting in the middle of landlord-tenant actions, and a lot of time habitability comes up when, like Priscilla said, the tenant's being evicted. And sometimes the conditions are due to the tenant's own actions in the building. So I don't know how you get away from getting in the middle of that. That's one of my concerns. Have these other cities shown that these codes have overall improved the conditions of their buildings over time, or that these have had a long-term impact?
From what I gather from reading the media in Corvallis, where I currently live, I believe that the answer to that question is yes, because and both Eugene and Corvallis are dealing with a large student rental population, not that it's exclusively that, but they've got an active rental housing program in City Hall that's dealing with livability issues, both conditions of the housing and also neighborhood conditions, and the impact of a large number of 18 to 24-year-olds living in neighborhoods, and the partying that goes on and things like that. So I think probably a lot of that is financed through that fee. But yeah, I think the key is it gives the city the ability to get things done rather than waiting until the point that we have a letter from the building inspector saying this is a dangerous building. I mean, we have, you know, in the years that I've been here, we've occasionally get complaints about lack of water or sewage not working right, electrical problems, and again, our standard response has been call the county, and then the county may or may not get involved, and we don't know how it's resolved. But at this point, the city has no tools in the toolbox to make sure that rental housing is livable.
The third issue, I think, is the money, and then I think it should be earmarked for something in particular. But we also have a lot of subsidized housing in town, and I would hate to see those tenants have to bear. So, have you talked with the County Housing Authority at all about?
We have not done any outreach to any of the property owners or property management companies yet.
Because they own quite a few in town, and I don't know how they would, if they'd absorb that or pass it on.
They're actually exempt from certain local taxes. We owned 2,200 units when that went into effect in Eugene. My social service agency owned 2,200 units, and we actually were exempt for most of those units. I wanted to say one other thing about that is I didn't think that we had anybody like this in this area, but I guess I was proved wrong by that unit. And in areas like Eugene, we had what you call slumlords. We had people that were classically did not ever take care of their property, and it did end up getting rid of some of those slumlords. It was kind of a double-edged sword for those of us in social services, because those slumlords were also people that would rent to people we couldn't get into housing anywhere else. So we actually took away one of our own tools by getting rid of them. So it's, I think that we could get some standards without being and get them in such a way that we weren't so proactive to get ourselves into more problems than what we need, but yet have maybe something that at least would allow Public Works or somebody to do something if the need arose, without generating more work that maybe we don't need if Marion County's dealing with it okay. I mean, this came around back to us, right?
The way the city's dangerous building code is written, it is up to the building inspectors with Marion County to make the determination that a building is dangerous, and then it's up to our local code officer, currently in the police department, to file the notice of violation, order of abatement, and deal with the enforcement procedure. But we rely on Marion County to make the determination that, yes, this balcony is about to fall off.
Mm-hmm. Right, and so would that need to change?
No.
Yeah.
No, because hopefully we're dealing with issues before we get to the dangerous building that should be vacated.
Again, I don't know that I would want to go with something like that, but I certainly think it might be worth further review of some kind. If you feel like it's going to be helpful to our community and to our residents.
Well, again, considering that 4 out of 10 of the residents of the city are renters,
Yeah.
I think providing this type of code and local enforcement mechanism would be helpful to them.
Who speaks for them? Yeah. Yeah. Okay, what do you folks want to do? Would you like Dan to pursue this a little bit? Bring it back to us for more discussion, some good points here. Do we really want to get in the middle of landlords and tenants? But how do we protect those who may not feel they don't have anyone to turn to with a housing concern? So,
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
I think before we do anything with this, I think our other two colleagues need to be here as well to voice their opinions. I'm not hearing that we absolutely have to have this. I don't, since we have a system in place with Marion County, I think, as Ms. Glidewell says, that some education may need to be done. I don't know if renters are told this is the process if you have issues. I think that might be useful. But I don't know, I'm hesitant to put more of a burden on landlords, who in turn put the burden on the tenants with rent increases and the like. I don't know, I'm a little hesitant with that. So if I were to make a move here, I would move that we have a more in-depth discussion among the city council prior to preparation of an ordinance. That's number 3.
I don't know if does it need a motion, Ralph? I mean, we can just,
I don't know.
we just direct, we can do it though if you want. Where is that? Through all these standards. Where are they?
I don't see a page number, so.
The other way.
Property Maintenance Code. Oh, here we go. It's
Should
on
be
the
right
second
there.
page, yeah. If you want to put that in the form of a motion, we can do it.
So moved.
Okay, so option 3, have a more in-depth discussion among the city council prior to preparation of an ordinance. I have a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Is there any more discussion at this point? Okay, just a voice vote, please. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And opposed, no. Priscilla, did you vote aye on that? Okay, so great. Thank you,
I
councilors.
seconded it. I don't think I would have voted no.
What? I mean, I needed to ask. That's fine. Let's see.
All right, so we'll be back with this presumably next meeting.
Yeah, okay. I think we're going to dog licensing. Staff report. Chief Stevens.
Mayor and Council, I bring to you tonight the issue of dog licensing. Mayor Porter asked me a while back if I would look into and bring back to you some pros and cons with whether we wanted to do licensing out of the city as we did prior to 2011. He was wondering whether this would be a service that we wanted to allow people to register their dogs within the city. And so I looked into it to see whether that's what it would take to go back to doing what we did prior to 2011 when we had a full-time ordinance officer and animal control person. And in 2011, prior to that, we had an annual average of about 760 dogs per year that we registered. And then we handed that over to Marion County, and then we had about 532 animal complaints on average that the ordinance officer dealt with. In order for us to take on the registration takes about 10 to 15 minutes per dog, and with the cost that we were receiving at the time, it ends up to be a little better than a wash as far as whether we as far as the amount of money that comes in to handle that. The problem comes with the enforcement portion of it is that Marion County is currently doing the registration, but part of that, the funding that they receive from that brings in that they handle the enforcement of the animal issues that we have in town. And they most likely would not do that animal enforcement, and so then that would fall back on the city to handle the enforcement of the animal complaints that we have. We currently do handle the emergency animal complaints if there's a dog running in traffic, or if there's an animal crime such as an animal neglect type of a case, or a vicious dog or a dog bite. We do handle those currently, but we typically do not handle the barking dog complaints and the dogs at large. And one of the thought processes was to allow people to be able to register it so they didn't have to go into Salem to do it. Marion County does allow internet registration of their dogs. They allow it at some of the vet clinics in the area, although the ones in Stayton no longer do the registration. But Almsville Clinic still does that. And then they can also go into Salem as well. Marion County is planning on having an amnesty dog registration day in September here at the library, where people will be able to go in and get their rabies shots and register their dog at the same time. So we are just looking for council direction on what you'd like the staff to, if you'd like us to look further into it or not.
Mr. Mayor,
Please, go ahead.
can I ask you why you were interested in this?
Well, I have a keen interest in doing this doggy thing because of Gus, I guess, who put me up to it. And he could be considered sometimes a dog running at large. He'll get off his leash and take off in the middle of traffic, and so far nobody's run over him. But then everyone stops. They all get out of their cars, and somebody tries to catch him. Some of you have seen this happen, especially around City Hall. Anyway, this is in conjunction with another, I think it's a community service, a dog park that didn't get on this agenda, but hopefully will before summer's over. I'm concerned, I guess, there's a safety thing. How many of the community's dogs do you think are registered, Chief? What percentage? How many does the county think they get?
Percentage, I don't know on the percentage, but they currently have 643 dogs that are currently registered within the city. They said that's, they have 200 dogs that are no longer being registered, whether it's from the owners selling the dogs or from the dogs dying. So they have 200 that are no longer.
So,
Is there any attempt on their part to follow up on why didn't you register your dog this year?
I don't believe so. I don't believe that they've done any type of survey that they've told me about, but they are doing the Amnesty Day so that they can try to encourage people to get their dogs registered.
And to get them registered and a shot for?
Yes, for the rabies.
There you go. That's certainly a public health concern right there. And we know that area raccoons, squirrels, what else carries rabies? We do know that too, don't
Yep.
we? Yeah. Not often, but now and again. Okay, somebody else had a question.
I'll say something. I think one of the biggest complaints since we lost that ordinance enforcement officer many years ago was not responding to dog complaints anymore. But it sounds like it's not cost effective for us to put that back into play.
Correct.
So.
Though with those complaints, I don't know whether it's because people become educated about what we do or not do, or whether it's they've dropped off. Definitely social media has helped with that because people tend to post their dogs when they're missing, or if they have a dog that's running at large and they post it on there and say, hey, this is running in my neighborhood, and somebody a while later will claim that they've claimed the dog and picked it up. So that has helped.
So the official, let's see if I can word this right. Let's see, your position, your department's position would be that the system we've got is working well enough and to leave it alone.
Correct.
Okay. And I hadn't considered the social media thing. Because I don't use it.
You gotta get Gus on Facebook.
I don't want to mess with that. No, thank you, please. How about rotary phones? I like those. Okay, so then we'll leave that alone. And I've taken the idea of a dog park to the Parks Commission twice this summer. And I think I've got I thought it went twice. The 13th, it didn't go?
No, you were there once.
What happened to
But it was
13th?
very successful.
Yeah, what happened to 13th? This month's Parks Board meeting.
You weren't there.
No.
But we discussed it, and we're going to move forward with creating a plan
Okay,
for
that's-
the summer festival.
Okay. So we went in June and July.
No, you just went once. You were there once.
Well, I was there once. That was the June meeting.
I discussed it with the Parks Board members.
Or July.
Following meeting, which was last
The
Tuesday or
13th.
Wednesday.
Okay,
Tuesday.
okay. So we need another public meeting on this.
I believe it'll probably be more than just a public meeting. It'll probably open it up to members of public meeting, members of the citizens of the city to come and comment on. It might be more than one.
What do you suppose would happen in this town if it was really something substantial that you wanted to get done, instead of kind of an inconsequential thing like this?
It's a good question.
Maybe 6 months, a year?
Well, I tried to run it through just this last spring, and it didn't go very far. So we probably want to make sure that we do it right this time and make sure everybody's on board.
Well, I'm sorry, do that again. Run it through what?
Well, just to make sure we have comments from the city and make sure
Oh,
everybody's
yeah.
on board.
Oh, that's fine, yeah. When the Budget Committee, there's some folks were concerned it was going to be stuck in Pioneer Park. A couple of our councilors live over in that neighborhood, and they weren't very excited about it. So it just kind of took on kind of a blunt edge, I guess, is one way to say it. But there are other places, and I just hate to see this thing, personally, hate to see this thing die, kind of a benign neglect, when it's an easy, cheap thing that does a real service for our community, I think. Okay. Moving right along. Let's see, monthly finance report. And that's it. There it is.
Mr. Mayor, I'll be happy to answer any
see.
questions, but I have nothing to add about the finance
Okay,
report.
anything for Keith on that? Okay, police activity.
Mayor and Council, you have the statistical report from the month of June before you. All statistics are within line from previous months. But what I would like to point out is that National Night Out is set for August 2nd. And again, the police department will be in 4 of the parks. We'll be at the Eagle or Quail Run Park, Pioneer Park, Westtown Park, and Santiam Station, where the officers and the police advisory board will be cooking hamburgers and hot dogs. And we're asking it again to have the community members to bring their store-bought items to join in with the barbecues and just get to know the police officers and their neighbors. So we're hoping that you will join in as well.
Thank you, Chief. Fewer arrests. Okay.
So, Chief, has the city councilors ever taken like an active role in splitting up and being at each park to be available to the community?
They have not in the past. We've invited them in the past, and what we would love to have councilors sign up to be at individual parks. Some of them have come individually on their own I know Jennifer has been there, Pioneer, multiple years. So.
Okay, anything else on the chief's report? Mr. Ludwig, Public Works Director.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. You have my monthly operating report for June. I have nothing further to add, but I'd be more than happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Okay. Anything, folks? Thank you. Dan, Public Works, where's Director of Planning and Development? Dan, what went on in June this last year?
Well, the June Planning Commission meeting was a busy one. There were 4 public hearings, 2 development applications, 1 zone map amendment, and 1 code amendment. Those will be appearing on your agenda at your next meeting for your public hearings to deal with the zone map amendment and another code amendment. Other than that, we're continuing to work with the property owners that were before the Planning Commission in the late winter and early spring, and those projects are probably soon be breaking ground, and my usual just busy at the counter and answering phone calls type stuff.
Okay, good. Thank you. Good. Okay, let's see. Ms. Mosier, library report.
So my report's in the packet, and there are statistics for the year on the back of it. We're on the next page. Have anything further?
Okay. Are the summer outdoor films, are they in behind the library there again?
They are
Is that
behind the library.
Same place, okay. Okay, sounds good. Sounds good. It's nice from at least your unsworn testimony, you're settling in over there and
I am.
Being treated well.
Very well.
Okay, I already said that's an important thing. Okay, let's see. Business from the city administrator.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to do a reminder for the city council, and also that tonight, after we adjourn the meeting, we have an executive session to discuss labor negotiations pursuant to Oregon Revised Statutes 192.660. So we'll be, after everyone clears out of the meeting room, we'll be having that executive session.
Okay, thank you, Keith. The only thing I've got this evening, other than having to go home and report to Gus that his dog park is stuck still, he'll get over it, I guess. Appointment of Scott West to Parks and Recreation Board. Scott has served. He served on the Budget Committee, and he may have been on. I had a biographic sketch here somewhere. I can't find it. He's been on boards and he may have even been on the Parks Board for a while. Okay, so with your...
It's right here.
It says that.
It is there. Okay, you saw it too. Good. With your concurrence, I'd like to appoint Scott to back on the Parks and Recreation Board.
Is Mr. West here?
No, he's not. No. He was on the Budget Committee.
Can we change this so when people apply for positions, they come to the city council meeting and introduce themselves, so I know when I walk down the street past them, I know who they are?
That's an idea. It's a good one. Yeah. Yeah, let's work on that. Okay. You folks okay with it?
I will move for us to consent to your appointment.
Okay.
We need a second?
I guess.
I'll second.
A motion and a second to approve appointment of Scott West to Parks and Recreation. Let me take a voice vote on that, please. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Okay. 3-0. Okay. Future agenda items, Monday, August 1st. Business survey results, public hearing, code amendments, public hearing, zone map amendment, and Wildlife Meadows Development Agreement. And I think I may even bring Gus to the next meeting. I want to put a little political pressure on this outfit. I may just have him sit out here and,
Mr. Mayor, I believe the dog park will probably be on that agenda as well.
thank you. There's movement already.
That's the way you have.
Does anyone have,
Before that.
I'll bring him anyway, he's good company. Does anyone have anything else? And if not, let's be in adjournment.